Something's got to happen already. I'm so sick of this back and forth with the Steelers quarterback news. Just yesterday, I got done talking about how Justin Fields is Steelers' priority number one. They're going to offer him first. And now I'm seeing today that Justin Fields is intrigued by the Jets. Now, both can be true, but it's just we keep seeing these different stories pop up with all these different angles, all these different perspectives. And I'm just sick of it. I just want a decision to be made. Justin Fields, are you going to be the Steelers quarterback? If not, then who? That's where I'm at. Because again, Jeremy Fowler went on ESPN yesterday on the Morning Sports Center and referenced a potential fit with Fields to the Jets. And I kind of can see it. Jets are a sleeper option here. They could have some interest. They like the idea of a dual threat quarterback. I'm told Fields has looked at the roster, sees some intrigue there too. Justin Fields is going to be a pretty hot name. Outside of Sam Darnold, who is the top free agent quarterback, Fields can make a strong argument for number two. I'm told Fields is open to return to Pittsburgh. He had a good experience there. Belief is Pittsburgh also open to that too. But he wants a clean runway to start a full season. He would like to be the guy wherever he goes. And I 100% don't blame him because he's in position to do that. It's not like his market is where it was last offseason, where the Steelers ended up trading a 6th-round pick for him. This offseason, it's like, yeah, he has a legitimate chance to start 17 games for one of these teams because the quarterback class isn't as strong as last year's either. There was 6 quarterbacks taken in what? Was it the top 12 or the top 15? 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12 or top 15 last year. Whereas this year, we're talking about Cam Ward and Shador Sanders being in the top 5, top 10. Outside of that, there may not be another quarterback draft in the first round, but we all know the closer we get to the draft, one of these guys is going to, maybe a couple of these guys are going to pop up and be late first-round picks, whether it's a Jackson Dart or a Will Howard. Now, I think Will Howard is deserving. I've talked about that. But this quarterback class is way weaker. So teams that are looking for a quarterback aren't just going to go to the draft and say, and draft a guy and give them the keys to be the franchise. Not as many dudes in this year's draft like it was last year. Because there was probably how many teams last year that were looking for a quarterback? Maybe 6, 7, 8, right? Last offseason. But you had 6 of those quarterbacks taken in the draft. And then the Steelers signed Russ. I'm trying to even think what the free agent market was. Yeah, Vikings go draft with JJ McCarthy. They pick up Sam Darnold. Like every team for the most part had their quarterback picked out, whether it was through the draft or they had their franchise guy or they had a young developing guy like the Colts with Anthony Richardson, the Panthers with Bryce Young. Every team pretty much last year had a quarterback direction, which had Fields be the odd man out and end up only get traded for a 6th-round pick to the Steelers and be a backup. Was slotted to be the backup, at least headed into the regular season, but he got his opportunity with 6 games, and that's also a part of why I think Fields' market is better this year. Because if we didn't get to see him for these 6 games, maybe we're talking about him being a backup. A team like the Jets, the Giants team, a Raiders, they're just maybe viewing him as competition for whoever they draft early in this 2025 draft, whether it's the first or second round. But like Fields has a right to ask for 17 games. I want to be given the keys. I want to be the guy for a full season, a full schedule. I think he's kind of earned that right. Not only given his play last year, but also the fact that this quarterback class kind of weak. And it seems like with the market, there's more teams in need of quarterback, fresh start, spark in the offense than what's going to be available to him. So I don't blame Fields for having some Jets intrigue, especially if the Steelers are going to play hardball, because one of the reports I was reading and I've talked about is that if the Steelers don't get their number with Justin Fields, if they can't come to an agreement, Steelers are going to pivot to option B, and reportedly that's Russell Wilson, which I'm not happy about. Option B should be a couple other quarterbacks, which we're going to get into today because, as you can see by the title, we're ranking the Steelers' 2025 quarterback options. I got 1 through 8. Couple tiers, tier 1, a tier 2, kind of a tier 3 in this whole equation. But Russell Wilson shouldn't be option B. Good argument that Justin Fields, option A or option 1 for option A, option 1. I think there's a good argument for that. But Russell Wilson, option B, not a fan of that. Not a fan of that at all. And I've talked about that multiple times on some of these videos. But if Fields and Steelers can't come to agreement, Fields got to look elsewhere. Steelers got to look elsewhere too. And the Jets, with them signing the Lions, it was like an offensive assistant or some like quarterback coach, some guy under Ben Johnson to be their offensive coordinator, a guy that's learned under the Lions, under Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, what it means to run an offense in 2025. Yeah, Fields is probably looking at that and saying, this could be a good fresh start. He's got his college teammate over there at receiver too, Garrett Wilson. I'm worried a little bit, though. I'm worried if the Steelers try to play hardball here and become too stubborn on the number. But I said this too. Fields, I don't think he's going to be pushing the envelope too much either. Like the Steelers offer him 15 and Fields is looking for maybe 17, 18, maybe 20. I think he'll still take the Steelers deal because Steelers are legitimately his best option out there for being a starting quarterback in 2025 and being a successful starting quarterback in 2025 and trying to carve out a name for yourself and become a mainstay in the NFL for the next 5 years to 10 years. We are going to be giving him the best base foundation for all that, not only because of the familiarity, him already being here. He's also got an offensive coordinator that likes him. They mesh together very well and is willing to tailor an offense around Fields. But also, we have a really high floor. And you saw what happened last year with Fields when he got in those 6 games. He didn't have to be Superman. He didn't have to be superhero. He didn't have to be like a Josh Allen just carrying the team and we're dropping him back to pass 30, 40 times. He's got to escape the pocket, make the miraculous happen, play in and play out. No, he didn't have to do that. Just had to not turn the ball over. And whenever we need him to clutch up on a third down, can you do it? Can you run for a first down? Can you throw it down the field? And he was accomplishing that at a pretty decent clip in those 6 games last year. So that's the floor. And I feel like he was only scratching the surface. But with him going through different coordinators, different playbooks, and the calamity of a franchise that the Chicago Bears have going on over there, after he was dealing with that, then comes to the Steelers, I don't think he's looking for a third team. I don't think he's looking to potentially go back to chaos because you don't know what you're going to get from the Raiders, the Jets, or the Giants. Steelers, you know what you're getting here. You know what our floor is. Now, ultimately, is that good enough going forward when you're talking about winning Super Bowls, winning championships? No, but I think it's a great starting point for Fields and his second wave of his career. I think it's a great starting point. And then now you just see if he can develop to be that franchise guy, that elite guy. How can him and Arthur Smith work? How can him and the Steelers work in tandem to eventually get there? Because that's not only what Fields needs, but that's also what the Steelers need, which is why I think it would be a good marriage. I think it would be a good fit. But if the Steelers aren't careful, if they're not careful, they're going to be like that, what's it, F around too much and find out. That meme. If you F around a little bit too much with this, if you mess around, you're gonna find out. And Fields may be on another team when it's all said and done, and March rolls by here. If the Steelers mess around a little bit too much, and they're not going into this free agency period with conviction on who they want their quarterback to be. If it's like, Fields is kind of option A and we'll toss him this contract and this is the number we're set on. If he doesn't do that, we're going to pivot. We're going to go Russ or we're going to look at other options out there. Then don't be surprised if we're in this weird quarterback, weird team purgatory for more years down the line, because Fields gives us the chance to find someone for the next 5 to 10 years. He gives us the chance, at elite quarterback play, not only here, but for the future. And that's something that's very valuable. I think that's something the Steelers should look at and say, even though there are other options out there, even though there's more proven guys, there's something to be said for this ceiling and upside that Fields brings that we shouldn't be taking for granted. Because even if you want some of these more proven guys, they're up there in age, and it can very well not go well with them either. And then you're in this weird spot again next year. At least with Fields, you're gonna know one way or another. I feel like you're gonna have an answer. Is it Fields, or do we got to draft a quarterback? You go one of these other directions, you might be in the same spot again next year, where you're looking at veteran quarterbacks or whatever quarterback maybe you have on the team, and say it's a Russ. We'll use Russ for example. He played good enough, and we're 9-8, 10-7, and you're asking yourself, do we bring Russ back again? And then draft a quarterback, have a mentor him. It could be a late first round pick, it could be a second round pick. That waffling, you know what I mean? That's the spot we could very well be in if we don't go with Justin Fields. We're going to get an answer one way or another. And that's what I like about potentially signing him. All right, we got some people in the chat here. Ty_2. What's good, man? He says Jets are the equivalent to the Bears. Yeah, pretty much. Right, as an organization. If Rodgers can't get anything done in New York, what makes you think Justin will? Yeah, they're kind of like a cursed franchise. Terry Davis, where does Fields fall in the 1 to 8 ranking? I am glad you asked. Because we are going to get into that right now. Ranking the Steelers' 2025 quarterback options. I got my producer skills on display here too. We got the graphics up. This is going to be a dope segment. So we're going to start off with, basically the tiers are broken up into 1, 2, 3. You could probably guess my 1, 2, 3. You might not be able to guess the order though. Tier 1 is 1, 2, 3. Tier 2 is 4, 5, 6. And then tier 3 is 7, 8. How will we describe these tiers? Obviously, 1, 2, 3 is the good tier. Acceptable. Like, I'm good rocking with these quarterbacks for 2025. I'm good doing that. Tier 2. No. Just no. Flat out no. It's not getting us anywhere. Tier 3, hell no. That's how we're categorizing these tiers. So the first name that appears in tier 3, we're going to go 8 to 1. Kirk Cousins. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not only does he only have one playoff win to his name throughout the course of his whole career. How many seasons has he been in the league? 12, 13 years? On some pretty good teams too. The pretty good Vikings teams. Pretty good teams over in Washington. Last year, that Falcons team, not bad. But we saw him falter down the stretch, and he's only getting older. Unlike Aaron Rodgers, coming off that Achilles injury, his first year off the Achilles injury, he faltered down the stretch, whereas Rodgers elevated his play down the stretch and got better as the season went on. Now, I think he's blaming it on another injury. There was something else like upper body related. Didn't have to do with the Achilles, which is why his arm strength went down as the season waned. But man, you want to complain about Russ and his mobility, and you want to complain about Russ potentially being limited. Kirk Cousins is like another level removed from that. Like he's another level of washed, limited, however you want to describe it. Like his prime days are behind him. And if we're talking about trying to get more mobile at the quarterback position, if we're talking about trying to get more dynamic at the quarterback position potentially, Kirk Cousins ain't it. Ain't it at all. I feel like if we go with Kirk Cousins, we're even digging in deeper to the traditional Tomlin conservative style offense that we've been running over like the last 3 years, whether you're talking about with Matt Canada or with Arthur Smith over these last like 2 or 3 games, 2, 3, 4 games of the season. Because like I can't put conservative offense all on Arthur Smith from last year. I can't say it was like the full season of having a conservative offense. It was like those last, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was, man. It went back to being like a Canada style offense, which was unfortunate. So if we're talking about trying to get rid of that, move off of that, wipe our hands clean of that, Kirk Cousins doesn't get us heading in the right direction. In fact, he gets us going in the wrong direction, gets us going backwards. So that's 8. I forgot. Do I not have? Okay, I'm gonna jump the gun here. We're gonna see 6 and 7. I guess I didn't put the graphic up for just 7. 7 is Daniel Jones. 6 is Sam Darnold. Initially, I had Daniel Jones at 8 because obviously Kirk Cousins, over the course of both of their careers between him and Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins is the better quarterback. But Daniel Jones is younger. He is a former first-round pick. He did have a nice little season with the Giants a couple years ago. So my only reason for having Daniel Jones above Kirk Cousins is there still a little bit of untapped potential? Is there still a little bit of unlocked ceiling for Daniel Jones, a la a Sam Darnold and what he accomplished last year with the Vikings? That's the prototype with Daniel Jones. New team, new organization, fresh start. Could Daniel Jones turn his career around? That's why I have him at 7 over Kirk Cousins. Like, there's a little bit more intrigue. There's a little bit more upside potential with Daniel Jones, whereas Kirk Cousins, I don't see it at all. I don't. Now, Sam Darnold at 6. You got to give the dude props for his season with the Vikings, man. I mean, he was low key in the MVP conversation whenever we were discussing it around week 14, week 15, but then we saw how he finished the season and it was ugly. And I can't get that out of my mind. Dude did not show up in the big games down the stretch when you're talking about trying to clinch the division and when you're talking about winning playoff games. And that matters. That's exactly what we are trying to do. We know how to go 10 and 7. We know how to get a wild card spot and go 1 and done in the playoffs. Sam Darnold has proven that he could be a perfect quarterback to do that, but can he get over the hump? Now with him, he does have talent. He still has upside. I feel like he still has some learning and development to go, but based off how last season ended, it just didn't look like he had that dog in him. He was still seeing the ghost like he was over in New York. Yeah, you combine how he looked in New York with the Jets and then how he ended last year. I'll pass on Sam Darnold, especially with the amount of money that he's going to be demanding because of the good season that he had. And I'll give him that credit. But whatever new team he goes to, whether it would hypothetically be the Steelers, he's not throwing to Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison anymore, or TJ Hawkinson. We just have George Pickens, and who knows? Who knows what our other offensive weapons are going to be. So I don't think Sam, and he's not going to have Kevin O'Connell calling the plays. So, yeah, it's just not going to be the same for Sam Darnold. And the amount that it's probably going to take to get him, I'll pass. I'll have him at 6 on this list. So at 5, I'll go Russ, man. I'll go with Russ over Sam Darnold. Just because I don't think you have to invest as much into Russ. And at least he has the Super Bowl championship. He is clutch. Like, that's the thing with Russ. He's not going to completely fold in big games. When adversity strikes, when things aren't going well, he responds. Sam Darnold, not so much. So at least we can give that to Russ. And he wasn't like god awful last year. We ended up making the Pro Bowl, even if that was a fake Pro Bowl, kind of. Like the stats weren't bad. The touchdown interception ratio wasn't bad. We did have good moments. We did have some highs. The 400 yards against the Bengals, the nice winning streak we went on whenever he first started for us. But how it ended was a little bit rough. We can't deny that. And that's why I have him at 5 on this list. I don't think he's getting better as time goes on. I don't. But if you're talking about Russ versus Darnold, Daniel Jones, and Kirk Cousins, I'll take Russ. I mean, he's going to cost less than a Darnold. I think he's proven more than a Daniel Jones and a Kirk Cousins. And we got the familiarity here. Like that should help him too if he were to come back. So I'll put him at 5. At 4, I was going back and forth with this one between Derek Carr at 4 or Russ at 4. I'm just thinking right now, Derek Carr has a little more pop. I think he's a better quarterback than Russell Wilson in a vacuum. He's younger. Derek is 33. Russ is going to be 37. And if you look at what he did last year, and here's the funny thing. You look at Derek Carr versus Russell Wilson and Sam Darnold even, and we know Sam Darnold had a renaissance last year. Made a name for himself. Got himself back into relevancy. Derek Carr actually had a better QBR than both Russell Wilson and Sam Darnold last year. Better QB. It was like 60-something. 60-something plus. Sam Darnold was at 60 and Russ was at like 50-something. Better QBR. He went 5-5 with the Saints. Like low-key actually had a good season. Now the Saints, kind of one of those franchises that no one's paying attention to. There's no sizzle. There's no pop to what they got going. So that's kind of why Derek Carr flew under the radar. He obviously got injured too. Didn't do anything spectacular, but I think low-key had a decent season. All things considering down there in New Orleans with him getting hurt, but also the weapons that he has around him. Not the greatest of coaches and Dennis Allen, not the greatest of scenarios. I think outside of Alvin Kamara, I mean, you got Chris Olave, but who else is Derek Carr throwing to? And for him to put up a decent touchdown interception ratio, have a better QBR than Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold, finished with a 500 record, the same record that Russell Wilson ended with here in Pittsburgh. That's not nothing. I'm not happy about it, though. I mean, I'm not happy if we're bringing in Derek Carr. I'm not really thrilled. It's just if you gave me the option between the guys that are below him on this list, I'll take Derek Carr. If you're talking about that tier 2 from 4 to 6, yeah, Derek Carr over Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold. I think he's more proven than Sam Darnold. You know he's not going to choke in a big game or anything like that. He doesn't have as great of overall success as a Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's Hall of Famer. Derek Carr isn't. But I just think Derek Carr is the better quarterback right now. But he has proven enough that it gives me some faith that maybe we could catch some lightning in a bottle if Carr was our quarterback. Maybe. Just maybe. But I would not be thrilled of it because of the other options we'd be passing up on from 1 to 3. Now 3, and again, remember how I have my tiers categorized here. 1 through 3, I'm good with. Thumbs up. Let's roll. Steelers are back. 4 through 6, no. I don't think we're getting over the hump with any of these quarterbacks. I just don't. Because even if I'm talking, maybe I could talk it like back in my mind. Am I trying to talk myself into Derek Carr? Am I trying to? Even like a Russ, are we trying to talk ourselves in the back of our mind? Like, oh, maybe Russ year 2. Does it work? We get a couple other weapons. I just think these guys are too limited, man. I don't think they're getting it done. Think of the 5 quarterbacks that we got to go through in the AFC. Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. Are these guys getting it done like that? I don't think. It's tough. It's tough. I think we're just back to 10-7 land, 9-8 land with those guys. And then 7-8 just don't. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm gonna watch every game still. I'm not gonna be happy about it with Daniel Jones or Kirk Cousins. I mean, I'm gonna watch. I'm Steelers diehard, man, through and through, ride or die. I will be not happy. Let's just put it to you that way. Matt Stafford though at 3. Yeah, the dude. I mean, he's a baller. He's still a top 6 or 7 quarterback in this league. So if you're talking about trying to compete, get elite quarterback play, Matt Stafford will be the fast pass. My only concern with him is he only going to be declining going forward? I mean, the dude has dealt with injuries throughout his career. His last 2 seasons haven't been exactly what he was whenever he was winning the Super Bowl with the Rams. And, that's gonna happen. He's getting older and, some little decline is bound to happen, right? Cooper Kupp's gotten older. They've lost an Aaron Donald over there, but he's still a really damn good quarterback. Like, he kinda carried the Rams to the playoffs last year. My only concern, though, is if are the Rams selling high on him? You know what I mean? Like, obviously selling the highest on Stafford would have been trading him after the Super Bowl win, but, like, he still has strung together some really good some elite seasons. Hasn't been to the same caliber as the Super Bowl year, but it's still there. I mean, we're talking about him being top 6, top 7. When is that breaking point for him? Is he gonna age like a fine wine? And these are some of the risks when you're talking about older quarterbacks. Is he gonna age like a fine wine? Are we gonna get 1 year out of him? And this goes back to what I was saying about Justin Fields. Like, if you're the Steelers, Justin Fields, you're getting his prime for another 5 to 10 years. Matt Stafford, there's this how much are we getting elite quarterback play out of him? Is it just a year and then we're in this weird offseason in 2026 where we're questioning, do we bring back Stafford or not? Is he going to fall off a cliff? Do we draft a quarterback? That's what I'm saying. That's why, like, Fields, if your convictions are telling you go with Fields, let's not mess around, man. Let's not. But Stafford's at 3 because he's just that good. What it takes to get him, though, is more than what it would take to get these top 2 guys. And at number 2, it's Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to have to give up anything to get him. Jets are moving off of him. And, like, as much as I'm talking about Matt Stafford being a top 6 or 7 quarterback, Aaron Rodgers was, I think, 6th or 7th in touchdown passes last year, in a down year, in a year where it was cataclysmically bad for Rodgers. The Jets have to move off him. They gotta wipe their organization of the Aaron Rodgers sense. It was so bad. Dude still had 28 touchdowns, only 11 picks, almost threw for 4,000 yards. And going back to what I was talking about with Kirk Cousins and the Achilles injury, Aaron Rodgers got better as the season went on. The further he got removed from that injury, the better he got, the more mobile he looked, the more spry he looked. So he's going to be another season, another offseason, another full season removed from that Achilles injury, going to be motivated as ever coming off of the Jets release, the Jets, the terrible Jets franchise moving off of them. Still only, I mean, I say only, but when you're talking about all-time greats, some of them can play into their low 40s to mid 40s, like a Tom Brady. Now, maybe Tom Brady's just the outlier, but Aaron Rodgers keeps himself in pretty good shape, right? Only 41 will be 42. Brett Favre had arguably one of his best seasons with the Vikings whenever he was in his early 40s. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. Early 40s, up into his mid 40s, still played good, still played at a high level. So that's what you're thinking with Aaron Rodgers, man. That's what you're thinking. If he gets with a better organization, better franchise, better structure, still motivated, can you get some Aaron Rodgers back? And if you do, if you can, man, that's why he's number 2 on this list. Don't have to give as much. You don't have to give up anything like you would have to for Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford would be a trade, and that's if the Rams. That's the thing. Matt Stafford and Derek Carr may not even realistically be on this list. Saints might be running it back with Carr, and Rams might be running it back with Stafford. It's just that their names are being thrown out there in trade talks. So it really might just be these names: Fields, Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Darnold, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins. Because we know Falcons are cutting Kirk Cousins, right? I know he's technically still on the roster, but Falcons are moving off of him. So the options may be even a little bit lighter than what this list of 8 is saying here. But I got Fields at 1. I go back and forth with who the number 1 option between a Fields or an Aaron Rodgers. Ask me on a different day. You could, I was just selling Aaron Rodgers, right? At the end of me going on that spiel, you could probably tell me, man, you could probably talk me into Rodgers being the number 1 option because it is Aaron Rodgers. But sometimes it's just like the simplest answer, the best answer, is the one just staring right in front of you, and it's so obvious. But maybe you outthink yourself and you start looking at all these other options. That's how I'm feeling about Justin Fields. I think it just works. I think it works for both sides. The dude's a free agent. You don't got to trade anything to get him. He's in his prime, ultra talented, was a former top 11 pick. Proved that he could play winning football last year within the structure of your organization with Arthur Smith calling the plays. Felt like there was still a lot of untapped potential out there. So I think that's the simple one. I think that's the simple answer. Like, you're going to find out if Justin Fields can be your guy for the long term. These type of talented dudes don't come around that often. The only way you're typically able to get them is either in a massive trade or you're drafting in the top 10. You have a lousy season. And the Steelers, we know how we operate under Tomlin. We're never having a season where we're going like 6-11 or like 5-12, anything like that, where we could draft a guy of Justin Fields type of talent. So I think you just take that chance, man. Like, Fields fits in with the 2025 style of offense too, with his legs, with the mobility. You see what the Eagles do with Jalen Hurts. I've been talking about that, how the Steelers could easily utilize Justin Fields in a very similar manner. We just got to lean into it. That's the thing. We're like in this identity crisis of trying to be the Steelers of old while fitting in with how the NFL is now. Dude, you got to lean in. You got to lean in with how the NFL is now. Still, you can put your Steeler twist on it, right? And still be a run-first team. But use the quarterback's legs, do some design runs, do some motions. Do some window dressing with the formations and all that. Like, there's a lot of cool things that you can do that we're witnessing with all these creative offensive coordinators out there. There's a lot of cool things you could do. And again, we got to see a little bit of that with Justin Fields in those first 6 games, a little bit, because the offense was more dynamic on the ground with Fields as opposed to Russ. And I think Arthur Smith is up for the challenge. It's just, what does he do with it? And what did the Steelers do with their ultimate quarterback decision? Do they go with Fields? Or do they pivot? If Fields goes to the Jets, I mean, we could just do a QB swap then. That would be my solution. If Fields goes to the Jets, just bring in Aaron Rodgers. If you have all these guys available at your disposal, just go with Fields. Just don't overthink it. Just go with Fields, build around him, see what he could do. See if he could take that next step. And then hopefully we're on our way. But then if not, again, you have your answer, and then you could pivot in 2026. Go all in the draft. Trade up for Arch Manning. Do something like that. But that's it for today's show. Appreciate everyone for stopping through. Yeah, a couple of you guys in the chat are saying Stafford would be temporary, too long of the tooth. That's one of the risks. I think he's more in his prime. He's at least proven to still be elite more recently as opposed to an Aaron Rodgers. Although, again, if you look at each of their seasons last year, just straight off stats, I mean, they're not far off. Aaron Rodgers and Stafford aren't far off at all. But obviously Stafford did. If you had to watch the games, like, Stafford did play better. You can only look at a box score for so much info. It's not going to tell you everything. It's going to lie to you a little bit, because Rodgers also went 5-12. Stafford 10-6, made the playoffs, played good in the playoffs. So yeah, I'm not debating who was better last year, but man, I'm just telling you, it's not this far stretch that Rodgers can get back to elite form next year, given what I saw from last year. Like, he could still throw it. He could still sling it. Wasn't perfect, no, but there was obviously some rust. He was a part of the Jets. That's never a good thing either. That's not going to help your chances for success. What would he do with the Steelers? What would he do with, say, the Vikings move off of Sam Darnold and he goes over to the Vikings? Like, that would be dangerous if he did the full Brett Favre arc. But all right, I'm out of here. Like I said, thanks to everyone for stopping through. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling. Peace.